Okay, folks, so this is what I'd like to talk about. It's essentially we're working in Blender with different assets, different shapes, and it's about applying a texture, material texture to each shape, each asset that you can place into Blender. So let's have a go. So let's just first of all delete these assets, and to delete you press X. So you select the shape, press X and then press delete. So select shape, press X on your keyboard and then press delete. So what I want to do is place some shapes onto the board here, onto the canvas, and you can go to Shift A, or you can just go to Add on the top menu bar here, and then Mesh, Add, Mesh, and then we'll start with a cube. Okay. So what I've done also, and you'll need to do this too, is to select viewport shading here, rendered display, render preview, so that when we apply the material, it is visible to you. That's really important. So first of all, you can see that when you select on and off the shape, there is an orange border. Obviously we want to select the shape at this point in time, and then we want to make sure that on the menu toolbar here that we have selected material, and then we go to new, and at that point we stay there, and that's fine. Now what you will also need to do, and let me just try and do it here, free Blender materials, and we will be going to ambient CG. And this is a website that will allow us to access multiple materials, and you can see that you click on materials here and there are many options to choose from. Next page, so many pages, and all you do is you will select the material and then you will choose 1, 2 or 4K. I've been using 4K materials and that seems absolutely fine, and you will simply press 4K and it will download the 4K material, and then you'll need to go to your Finder, Downloads, and that's the material that I just downloaded, but you will need to unzip. So I will just double click to unzip, and then you have the folder you need. You can leave it in downloads, that's absolutely fine, but what I have been doing is copying and pasting this. So copy into my desktop, and then placing into a folder there. For ease we can use desktop. Obviously it's not the safest, or it's not the it's not the safest location because of the potential possibility of having it lost or having it deleted. So temporarily we'll use desktop, and that should be fine. So that's fine. So we'll come back to that, and we've obviously located and selected our material. So I'll now locate Blender again. By the way, accessing Blender is straightforward. By going to Finder, you would just go to Applications and then Blender, and just double click Blender to open it. But that's digressing slightly, which is fine. So we're back in Blender. So clicked on the object, clicked on the material, and now we go to shading, which is on the top menu bar, and then you should see these geometry nodes here. And what I now need to do is to make sure I've selected just the central principal BSDF, so just the central geometry node, and then press on your keyboard Control Shift T. Now what this does is it takes you back to the to your files, and I'm in desktop, so I can now locate my new material. So just do that again. So there it is, and you just double click. So you want all of these files, and all I'm going to do is just select all of them. So it's really important you select all the files, and then just press Principled Texture Setup, and there you are. We've applied the texture to the object. Now you can go back to Layout, and then there is your object, pressing S on the keyboard so we can scale up. And yeah, so accessing all of these transform options, location, rotation, scale, you just press N on your keyboard, and then the transform options appear. So that is N on your keyboard. Let's just press S again for scale and make that slightly smaller. Ordinarily we would be pressing the camera view, but let's just stay where we are for the time being. G on your keyboard will allow you to pick up and grab an object and move it around. So let's just bring one additional object into play so we can see that we can have multiple objects, multiple assets with different textures. So add mesh, this time we'll go with UV sphere, and there it is. I want to move it away a little bit, so just press G. You can see the beautiful shadows, and you can obviously merge objects as well. So let's just place that there. What I might do is shade it slightly. So if I go to add, object, shade smooth. So there's my object, I've shaded it smooth. Let's just zoom in a little so we can see, that's fine. Okay, so exactly the same process that we used here. So you select the object, you're on materials there, and select new, then immediately go to shading, and you've got that there, and then again just click off into the black and then onto the central geometry node, principled BSDF, and then again Control Shift T. Choose a different texture. Hopefully you've downloaded multiple textures at this point in time, and let's go with cardboard, and again the same process. You can just drag your mouse all the way up to select all of the files, and then principled texture, and that will then apply as if by digital magic onto the objects. So you now have two objects with two different textures. Back to layout, and then you should be able to see that. You can zoom in and zoom out, move around. Obviously we can, so using these Z, Y and X axis, you can move around the object as well, and we'll be taking multiple screenshots. There is a basic animation process that we can explore, but we'll do that at a later point. So obviously you have to select the object before you move it, and again pressing S once on your keyboard means that you can scale. Pressing R once on your keyboard means you can rotate, but you can also use the left hand options here to rotate. That's obviously a sphere, so you're not going to get much going on there. So let's add one more object. So add mesh, this time we'll go with a cone. Press G just to move that cone there, press S to scale. No, you don't necessarily have to do that, I'm just placing it in a slightly different way. That's fine. So again, making sure I'm on material options there, and then new, and then straight to shading once again, and then clicking off, and then clicking on principled BSDF, and then one last time Control Shift T, and choosing a third material. This time maybe I'll go with tiles. You can just click the top one and then hold down Shift and click the bottom file, and then principled texture BDF, and then just wait, and then it applies the texture. So it's straight back to layouts, and there you are. So you now have three assets, or three objects that you can move around, that you can see in three-dimensional digital space, and you can place these objects in different ways. So we will just continue with that process to explore. Obviously take multiple screenshots, explore rotating, and again explore just positioning. This might be a skill you end up using at a later date. Okay, wonderful. Now obviously there is a process of rendering the image, but I'm not going to go through that yet. And there's also, as you can see here, a timeline, so you can animate the objects as well, moving them around in different ways and using lots of different tools to move them around. And you can also add a sun. So maybe the last thing I'll do is show you how to add light. So add light, sun, and then you can go over here and increase and decrease the light. You can also move it around and have it move in different locations and different spaces. But ultimately that's what I wanted to show you. There are different types of different types of lights you can use, but the sun is pretty straightforward, and you can see that it's increasing, decreasing the light across the whole piece. but the shadows are quite wonderful on Blender. Okay, so that's how to add multiple textures to multiple shapes in Blender at this stage. Wonderful. Thank you so much for listening. I've been Jason Jones, and this has been Digital Visual Art.